certain unalienable rights from our Creator. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words from the preamble of the United States Declaration of Independence ring as true today as they did on July 4th, 1776. A few years later, with the ratification of the United States Constitution, these rights were further defined in the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment to the Constitution states that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This particular right has been debated for years, almost ad nauseum. However, there is a misconception among the American population as to what the Second Amendment actually establishes or protects. And because of the lack of an accurate historical perspective and an emotional bias, it's been misconceived that the Second Amendment does not protect the peoples of the United States right to keep and bear assault weapons. I personally, I've been an avid firearm proponent for many years, ever since I was a child. I couldn't have been but maybe 8 years old when my grandfather gave me my first BB pistol and began to teach me the fundamentals of firearm safety. Furthermore, I've personally owned a few assault weapons and have used them for multiple purposes, such as target shooting, hunting, and even home defense. So first, I'm going to discuss that there appears to be a lack of a proper historical perspective when it comes to the use of firearms in this nation. And second, I'm going to discuss that the fact that there appears to be an improper emotional bias that leads some people to believe that the Second Amendment does not protect the right to keep and bear assault weapons. So one of the arguments that the anti-assault weapon advocates use is that the assault weapon is of a military nature and therefore should be restricted to use solely by the military. However, it's often been said that without the common people having arms and knowing how to use them and being unafraid to use them, the American Revolution would never have even happened. It's notable that the duty of the citizens to keep and bear arms wasn't even debatable in colonial America. Remember that we were the subjects of the British Crown, and as such, we enjoyed the same rights as our English brethren across the sea. Now, attorney David Harmer, in his 1998 article, Securing a Free State, Why the Second Amendment Matters, published in the Brigham Young University Law Review, states that in medieval England, keeping and bearing arms was not a right. It was often an onerous duty owed to one's lord, one's fellow citizens, and the crown. An associate professor of law, David Yaski, attempts to counter this argument in his 2000 article, The Second Amendment, Structure, History, and Constitutional Change, which was published in the Michigan Law Review, when he states that the judicial orthodoxy has recently come under attack from a group of revisionist scholars. Rather than protecting only the state's militia, the revisionists have argued that the Second Amendment protects an individual right inherent to the concept of ordered liberty. However, Mr. Yaski's stance clearly cannot have been the intent of the framers of the Constitution. Perhaps he's unaware that the general population at the time of the American Revolution was actually much better armed than the standing British Army. For example, the professional foot soldier in service of the Crown at that time was issued a 75 caliber smooth-bore musket and a bayonet. Now, the smooth bore of these weapons made them inaccurate past about 100 yards. On the other hand, the American colonists, who were mostly farmers, had to hunt for whatever food that their farms were not able to provide them, and as such, their firearms were generally rifled muzzleloaders. The rifling in their arms afforded them much better accuracy and greater range than the British opponents had. For example, a well-trained rifleman can shoot his rifle accurately out to 150 yards, some even a lot further. Therefore, from an accurate understanding of American history, it is understood that the American population had firearms of a much greater effectiveness than their opponents in the professional British Army had. This thought had to have been in the minds of the framers of the Constitution. When applied in today's world, the owning, the owning of assault weapons cannot be restricted solely to the military. It is a protected right of the people under the Second Amendment. Now, there also seems to be an emotional bias in certain facets of the American population today against assault weapons. There are people that do not believe that the Second Amendment protects the right of the people to keep and bear assault weapons because of this emotional bias. One of the reasons that they state are that we have seen these weapons used in attacks against innocent people from Columbine, Colorado to Newtown, Connecticut, and many other incidents in between. Scholars Jeffrey Boutwell and Michael Clare, in their 1998 article, Small Arms and Light Weapons, Controlling the Real Instruments of War, published in Arms Control Today, state, in recent conflicts, more people have been killed by small arms and light weapons than by major weapon systems. However, assault weapons cannot be blamed for people's acts of violence against anybody else, any more so than a hammer can be blamed for a house being built. An assault weapon has no soul, therefore it can't feel human emotion. It has no brain, therefore it can't make decisions on its own. It is, by definition, an inanimate object, or simply a tool, if you will. And any tool left alone cannot be used for this intended purpose. There have been countless people bludgeoned to death by a hammer or a baseball bat. Countless people have lost their lives because of a criminal wielding a knife. We understand that all of these tools can be misused in a dangerous manner, yet we also understand that these tools are not inherently dangerous on their own. Thus it is with assault weapons. Yes, our hearts indeed long for justice. That is true. They hurt when we see innocent people being hurt. That's also true. Yet we must never trust our own hearts. Evidence of this is even found in the Bible. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Proverbs 28:26 also teaches us, "He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but whoever walks wisely will be delivered." You see, we must not let emotion guide our principles and actions. Our principles and actions must be based solely upon fact. The Second Amendment protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms. It does not discriminate as to the type of arms. We cannot let emotion guide our logic or cloud our logic when it comes to our understanding of this protected right. So let us conclude this discussion. First, I discussed the Second Amendment from a historical perspective. And second, I explored the emotional bias that seems to have taken form today. When a proper historical perspective is used and emotional bias is eliminated, we come to the conclusion that the Second Amendment does indeed protect the right of the people to keep and bear assault weapons. Now, the debate amongst gun control and gun rights advocates certainly will not end with the arguments that I've set forth herein. But however, it again must be reiterated that the rights of the American people cannot be trampled based solely upon someone's misunderstanding of American history or an unfair emotional bias. The framers of the Constitution wrote the Second Amendment. Though assault weapons were not in existence at that time, when applied in today's reality, the right of the American people to keep and bear assault weapons clearly must fall under its protection.